Welcome to the podcast, Anna. It's absolutely great to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Leslie. I'm so grateful. Thank you very much.
I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So I'm going to ask you the same question I ask all my guests. What is your money story?
Thank you for this question because I absolutely love the topic. I absolutely love it. What's my money story? The money story of the hero, if you know what I mean, which is I had a pain, then I went to the lowest that I could get. That was really, really, really painful. And that's what hit me. And then I said, that's it. That's it. A little bit like Scarlett O'Hara. Yeah. This will never happen to me again, or I'm never
Love
going to
Gone with the Wind.
whatever she said. But that's the idea. That's the idea. So my money story, if I can share with you, how much can we rewind? Maybe to university time, because back then, my wiring, I'm 57, so that people can put an idea of what time in history I belong to, Spain. And back then, all I ever heard and had seen is that people went to work, had that job forever, for all their lives, and then they will retire there. That's what I had around.
Yeah.
My father was a civil servant. So that's like double braced. It's like, that's the safest you can get. Be working for the government because they cannot kick you out.
Yeah.
They cannot sack you. So that's the safest you can be. From our perspective, in my family, most of my family were farmers. So they were working for themselves. But back then it was seen as a not very glamorous job. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So there was always that shame of, I'm coming from a family of farmers. Because of social pressure, I suppose, because they lived very well, they had money, and they were in contact with nature. And imagine what the world would be like if we didn't have any farmers.
Yeah, and landowners as well. You know, farmers are landowners too.
What would we eat?
Yeah.
What would we eat? So what I did was, well, what I want to do, I want to make sure that I would always be independent from a man. That was also another story. What I saw around was women that were depending on men because they didn't have a job, they didn't have a career, so to speak. I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't have anything at all, or it's not judgment, it's just what I saw from my experience.
Yeah.
They cannot live. My mom cannot leave my dad because how is she going to make money? Even though she was making money all the time, looking after children and sewing and whatever, but it's like she's not perceived as having a career on paper, a title. She didn't have a title. And that's what I saw. So number one lesson that I learned that was programmed in my head was be independent from a man. Also, another part of the program was men are evil. I know that you work with limiting beliefs, so that's something that was there, because the closest men to me, through the vision of my mother, were painted as men are evil because, and then I was giving the reasons, which were her reasons. And well, that was her story. It took me many years to understand that it was only her story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's the power of beliefs, right?
Absolutely.
Overall, yeah. And overall, I suppose these beliefs who are alien to us, but are implanted and planted and we live through, and they don't have anything to our essence, the essence that you talk about when we're babies.
Yeah.
We're complete and full and abundant. And it doesn't go there. So I said, okay, because I have the brains, what can I do? What will I study? So I wanted to be a vet. They wouldn't let me study out of the city where I was living. Then I thought, I love English. However, if I learn English, I can only be a teacher. That's all the aspiration that I could have. So no, I learn English by myself. And then the third one was, well, I'm going to study a degree. That's very difficult. So that not everybody can pass it. and who is needed in many companies. So I decided for chemistry,
Oh, wow.
which I like.
Yeah.
I like everything, really. I like everything. So that was not an issue, but that's what I did. I did chemistry. While I was studying chemistry, our professors and teachers, they would never say, you can own a company. They would always say, when you work in a lab, this. When you work in a company, this. So that subconscious programming was there. That was option one. Option two could be, well, you can do your PhD and stay in the system and just continue the will, which is getting our students with tons of information that you don't really need to just continue the wheel as it is, because
The
the
same cycle.
is
Yeah.
very, it's very comfortable what it is. Fortune had it that the Erasmus program showed up. And if you allow me here, the first day that I was going to sign up in university, it was not like now. You had to go to the building, get paperwork, write it down with your fingers, go to the bank, pay the fees. Very old-fashioned. But I put my foot in the first step of my university building, and I had this knowledge, or a voice talk to me, or whatever it is, my higher self, I don't know what it is. But that voice said to me, you will be finishing this degree abroad. 4 years later, my degree was 5 years. 4 years later, the Erasmus program appeared. And because I had known for 4 years that I was going to finish it abroad, even though there were a bunch of us going to the interview to grant us to give us the grant, of course I got number one because I had known for 4 years.
Absolutely.
So that was my inner dialogue. I knew that I was going to finish abroad, even though Erasmus didn't exist when I started, and that was the first year.
Do you feel you manifested that?
I don't think I did, but I know that it was planned.
Yeah.
Because when I was in school, when I went to school first, I was very advanced. I started at 6 in a private school, and I was the level of knowledge that I had was equivalent to a child of 8 or 9 year old, because I love reading and learning, and I was very fast back then. So they put me 1 year ahead. But then the law came and said, no, if you're born in 66, like I was, from January to December, then you need to go to this course. So they put me back 1 year. Had I continued 1 year ahead, I would have missed the Erasmus program.
Ah, so it was meant to be, clearly, going back that year. Yeah.
Because that was 13 years before.
Yeah. Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But then you look back, and might be my imagination. I'm just telling you the facts.
Yeah.
Those were the facts.
So what followed then?
What followed is that I finished my degree in 5 years. I was very much in a hurry, Leslie, to make money, because I had a why. The why is I want to live by myself, not with my parents anymore. I want to live by myself. However, I want to be independent. So this at 18, I just close the door and go away is like, no. You see my mother go, oh, you cannot leave me alone here. You're not old enough. I'm your mother. I own you. That was her program. I understand now, and I've worked on that a lot. But my why was really, really strong. So even though it was a difficult degree, actually only 6% of us finished in June, 5 years afterwards.
Good gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was one of those 6%. I finished my degree abroad in Dublin, and it was the why was really, really strong. So when you talk about the emotions, oh my God, I was holding on to it as an incandescent piece of wire, because I so wanted to get away from home.
Yeah.
So the moment that I finished, I had the notion that I didn't know enough. I was in university for a year, but then I said, I need money. So I'm going to get a grant. And I was given a grant just like that. I need more money. I'm going to give grant. So private tuition, we say. So I was giving grants. So I was making money all the time because I wanted to be independent. Yeah. Then after that, I saw that university was... My perception was that everybody was stabbing everybody else, because if you take one position, somebody else can't take it. Yeah. It's very competitive. Mm-hmm. I said, no, if I'm going to be paid, I prefer to be in the private sector. Yeah. So I said, I want to go somewhere. Within a week, I got a job. I never had it out in my mind that I wouldn't have opportunities to work. Never. Or to make money, never. So at the same time that my classmates were struggling to find jobs and years trying to go somewhere and somewhere else, and then settling for less or settling for whatever that would pay the rent with, you see, I had no doubt in my mind that I would get a job whenever I wanted. So that's
amazing. Yeah,
exactly. However, as per the amount that I could be getting, my financial thermostat was set in a place, and going above that never worked for a long time.
And it's something I think so many people, experience. I don't know how many times I've spoken on this podcast about, one of my favorite books, which is The Big Leap, where I cannot remember the author's name now, but he talks about us all having that internal thermostat, essentially, where an upper limit that, we reach, and so many people just keep butting up against that upper limit. And until they realize the only thing that's stopping them from pushing through is what's going on in their heads, basically, the conversation they're having with themselves with regards to what's possible for them. So what did you do to increase your internal thermostat?
It wasn't that long ago, I must tell you. Well, let's move forward a little bit. So I was working for a company for 10 years, and in my mind, or my belief was, work hard and you'll be paid. Work hard and you'll be paid, but only to a certain point, because money doesn't grow in trees, because you need to work hard to get money, because rich people are crooked, because that's other people. We don't belong to that class. So I always had enough to have a roof over my head, or buy an apartment, car, food, clothes, everything. But I would always have to check the labels. So I can never say, I have only 50 euros or pounds or whatever in the bank. I always had enough. But it was like, if I go on holidays, I need to check how much I spend. Yeah. That being said, I always was very good at putting money aside. So before knowing anything about financial literacy or whatever, my then husband and I decided to build a house. And I said, if we're going to build a house, we need to know how much money we can use to build this house. So the assumptions were, okay, let's imagine that one of us stops working, because at that moment he's a doctor. So his wages plus my wages is this amount. Out of this amount per month, how much are we spending in different concepts? So the biggest amount was holiday and leisure and that kind of stuff, which makes sense. We were young. Yeah. But then we say, okay, how much can we put aside towards the mortgage? So with that simple exercise, we came up with the idea, okay, we can buy a house of these square meters. And even if one of us stops working and we have children, we could still pay the mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is an exercise a lot of people don't do, I think.
I know.
And that's why financial stress happens, because you go and borrow to to a maximum, rather than working out the stress level of what if X happens, how will we manage? And you clearly carried out that exercise to prevent yourself from having that stress.
Yeah, that being said, our house could have been built a bit bigger, but because I lived from scarcity,
Yeah,
it's a bit smaller. And there are things that I never thought about because of that scarcity consciousness, because anything else belongs to other people. I'm not one of them. So that's what happened. Then we have one child, and we had another one. And when we had the first one, I stopped working for the lab that I was working with because I wanted to work from home, imagine in 2007, something like that. And I wanted to be there for my children. And then I read a book by Deepak Chopra, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, I think it's called. And in one of them, he shares how he told his children, focus on what you love. Meditate to know what value is it that you have? What's the special gift? What makes you different? I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's the idea. What can you bring to the world? And I've seen that sometimes it stops there. But in the book, he continues, and don't worry about the money, because I will have it there for you. You will always be financially safe. And then he says, because they were doing what they loved, they thrived, and they added so much they added so much value that money followed.
Yeah.
And that's what changed my mind and my life completely, Leslie. It was, I want to be able to tell my children, do whatever you want, because I'll be there for you, providing, the minimum. I'm not saying I'm going to buy your palace, obviously, but you would always have a house, you would always have food, you would always have clothing. So there to live, do whatever you want, study what you want, don't study whatever you want. So do whatever you want.
Yeah. And I think as well, we are now of a generation where far more people are looking at not being held down by being an employee, working for an organization, wanting to have that time freedom, and to be able to do something they actually love, rather than just do something they're paid for. And I think the benefits that our children, because my children, I've brought them up in exactly that same way, but actually my mindset was only probably changed with regards to that about 3 years ago, because I had exactly the same experience as you, Anna. My mum and dad brought me up to go to university, get a job, have a pension, and that would be my life. And that was that was my life very, very happily, until I was 40, had 2 small children, and suddenly realized, me being up in London, them being at nursery 100 or so miles away, was just not going to work, basically.
Exactly.
And that is now what I try and say to my children. Yes, have a good education, have good qualifications, but actually think about what you want to do with your life. Is that going to be a corporate career, or is it going to be something more entrepreneurial? And I think the children of today, because of the journey we've been on, will hopefully come to the realization there is a choice more quickly, potentially, than you and I actually did.
Yeah. And now it's out there everywhere.
Yeah.
Wherever you look, you can see it. But back then, Leslie, I don't have any reference.
Absolutely.
I didn't have any reference whatsoever.
Yeah.
None at all. It was just the desire of, I don't want to do this with my life. It was the day that I went back to work after my maternity leave. I told my boss, I'm leaving, the very same day, because I said, that's it. I want to be with my son. I want to be there for him. I want to make money, but not in this way where somebody's owning everything about me.
Yeah.
How much I deserve to be paid, for how many hours I have to work, from when to when. If I was looking for my holidays, which I was entitled to, it was like, oh my God, I need to ask for my holidays. Oh my God, oh my God. Plus, I had to do a lot of work before and a lot of work after. So, I mean, what kind of holiday is that when you're doing the work anyway?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, no, that. And when the desire was there, the things started to line up, like books appearing and people telling me about stuff and then opportunities. And in this case, it was when I was with my baby at home. A friend of mine from Ireland went to see me and see my newborn, to know him. And she was working for herself. She had a company in Ireland, and she's a chemist as well. That's where we met in Dublin when we were studying together. And she said, I have trouble talking to the authorities in Southern Europe, because, I mean, we're a bit more like ole, la, 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 mañana, all of us, right? So they couldn't understand the culture and the mentality. And then I had that idea. I said, what about I open an office of your business for the south of Europe? Because I understand this mentality of it doesn't matter what he says here, because we're going to ask you for this, which is completely different. And you see, civil servants not answering the phone and that kind of stuff. I know what that is like.
Yeah.
And that's how I found my second job, which was opening the Spanish or Southern European branch of a company that was doing, I didn't even know what they were doing, something with paperwork. I wasn't even sure, but I just dived in because it gave me the opportunity to be with my son. Moving forward, some other 10 years, I was doing that just for money. And I said, is this what I want to do with my life? To do a job that I don't really get any joy out of, or very little. I'm doing it because I want to pay for the school, for everything else. And that's where I left it altogether. I say bye to my career as a chemist. And then I was open for business. So I tried different things. I tried MLM, which I learned a lot from, but I didn't like it much either. Photography, because I had a studio at home. I love photography. I wrote books, but what I didn't know is that what happens afterwards. It's not about writing a book. It's about what happens afterwards. I continue writing books. And then I had this picture in my mind. Wouldn't it be great if I found something that's not a pyramid where the one on top screws the next one and so on and so forth, but that's more at the same level.
Yeah.
That I'm paid depending on the value that I add, that there's no limit to my income, that I can use English because I love the language, that I could travel. And overall, the freedom of time. I want to be for my children whenever I choose.
Yeah.
So magically, an email came to my inbox. And that email was inviting me to go to an event organized by Success Resources. It was National Achievers Congress. It's a Page Fest in London. And it's, well, we're going to discuss here and we will show you many opportunities to create business from home, from nothing pretty much, with very little investment. And I said, oh my God, look at this. And because I have an envelope for money, for training and learning, I used that envelope because I was in the Dole at that moment. I used that envelope to go to London. And when I went to London, Tony Robbins was one of the guest speakers, the main one. He was full blown there, speaking very loud as he does.
Yeah.
And it was full. I ordered the cheapest ticket. There were 4 or 5 prices. I ordered the cheapest, but not only that, I called them on the phone and I said, listen, I'm unemployed now. Can I get a reduction? I got a reduction. However, when I arrived in London, there was an envelope with the tickets, and it was a VIP ticket. VIP. I paid probably less than anybody else in the world
Oh
there.
my goodness.
It was a VIP ticket.
Yeah.
So I sat down at the VIP. It was, I mean, there were 4 or 5. There were higher levels, but anyway, it was quite at the front.
Yeah.
I sat down there. So it was the aisle, a person, a Scotsman, and then me. Tony was talking. The Scotsman said something to me in a foreign language, I understand. Know what he said. I'm sorry, Scots people, but I don't always understand what you say. Certainly not at that moment. So I just nodded politely.
He made an impression on you, but you're not quite sure how or why.
No clue. So he just took off. I just nodded politely. He took off. And then I felt something. So I turned around. I couldn't hear anything because Tony was talking. And there were 11,000 of us in that venue. 11,000. And I turned around and I see this little pink man walking on the aisle towards where I was sitting. And this voice crossed my mind, or this thought form that said, "What are you doing in that body?" Somehow I recognized that little pink man as somebody that I knew from a little different timeline. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But certainly he was not using the same kind of meat suit the last time that I had seen him. Yeah. Right? So he sat down right beside me because it was empty. And then Tony said, okay, you're going to choose a partner and tell them what you do, whatever attitude. That was the exercise. And then this little pink man, who's Owen, and today is my partner in life and in business, said to me,
how did I know you were going to say Owen? Forever now, because obviously to listeners, I do know Owen as well, the little pink man. I'll never look at him in the same light again.
Well, you see, brackets. I'm going to brackets here. But when I came to Ireland first to study, that was 88. And I always thought that I belonged to the white people, that my race was white because I wasn't black and because my eyes were not slit. So it's like, I'm white. But then I came to Ireland and then I understood the meaning of whiteness.
Yeah.
That's a different level altogether. And I thought, maybe I'm one of these minority races that they talk about. I had no clue. I was completely oblivious.
But go back and tell me more about, as you say, meeting the pink man and what then happened.
So the little pink man, during this exercise that Tony was proposing, he said, this is what I do. I teach people to invest in the stock market, to demystify the stock market so that they can get financial freedom. And what's behind is that would free people from the 9 to 5 so that they can go out there and do whatever is in their hearts. And I say, look, I've been here for 2 hours and I can go home. This is exactly what I wanted. That was exactly what I wanted. Exactly. Not only that, when I was doing my wish list, I said, and I want to write books. And during the break, Owen said, and you're going, among other things, he said, and you're going to translate my books into Spanish. Wow, look at this. That was in 2012. Now we are in 2023. So that was 11 years ago. During these 11 years ago, there were ups and downs and ups and downs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Till Leslie, I understood how powerful and intelligent and worthy I was. Because it took me until COVID, pretty much. I was like hiding, let him decide everything, just follow blindly whatever he was saying, until I said, no, hold on, I can learn this myself and I can take the reins of it.
And did at some point you remind yourself of what you had said all those years ago in terms of, I will never let a man financially be in charge. I want to be in
Yeah.
charge of my own finances. Did you get that reminder?
No, because he was still directing Owen what I was making and
Right.
how and everything
Yeah.
until little time ago that I said, I it was about holding my power
Hmm.
and said, I deserve this. I'm not saying that he was not paying enough, or no, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that at all, but it was all in me.
Yeah.
And something that happened as well was that one day I was walking on a beach, and then I was doing a meditation about abundance. And I was thinking, why is it I'm surrounded, swimming among water, a water or a sea of money, because the stock market there are trillions there. How come that I'm taking wrong decisions and I'm doing this wrong? So I'm sabotaging myself so that my accounts don't go as high up as they should. They had reached that glass ceiling of my financial thermostat. And I said, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
But I felt it. I felt it inside. And then in the distance, from a cloud, I sensed that my father was there. And my father from the cloud said, because I loved you, I chose to show you and to teach you what abundance was the way that I did, which was scarcity. I own it all. You cannot make more than me. All the opposite, which is the same thing. It was
Yeah.
let off. And to hear, because I loved you, I never heard him say that while he was alive. He never said good morning to me, ever. He never asked, how was your day, ever.
Mm.
So that gives you perspective of the role that he was playing in this life. And I thought, obviously, somebody must have loved me so much to accept and have such a crappy life, not loved by anybody. Even some people said, oh, when he dies, then we'll live, you see, within my family. So there must be a huge amount of love there to accept to play that role in a lifetime,
Yeah.
to teach your daughter something about abundance.
Yeah.
That was October, November. In December, I was paid more than 30,000. I don't know the currency, but whatever.
Yeah.
Dollars, I don't know. Pretty much it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's 5 figures. About 30,000 in 1 month. I had never made that kind of money. The year after, I made that amount many times over because I understood.
And you took back that power. You decided to be in charge and to fully accept the responsibility of being in charge.
Yeah. Thinking and looking back, when I was 6 and I started in school, I had gone to one of these little schools in a little part of your city, you see, where there are children of all ages all together, from 6 to 14 or whatever. And I was there for a few months. And because I love learning, I learned everything from everybody. So I knew everything. When I went to school, I was so bored because it was going back so many steps. Children were starting to read, and I could already divide by 2 numbers. It's like I was well ahead of them. So all the tests were so boring for me. So I would say, okay, how can I get a 5 out of 10? And then the rest is just I won't bother. But the teacher and my mother said, you have to, or you should do, whatever the translation would be. But it was a very strong command. You've got to get as much high level grades as you can. Because you should do this, because we tell you to.
Yeah.
I was very obedient, because otherwise you never know.
Yeah.
Mom might stop loving me or whatever the reason. So that was at 6. So from 6 till I finished at 18, I did what I was expected to do.
Yeah.
But that was, you see, it's like, don't be yourself. You need to be who we tell you to be.
Yeah.
So
And what do you think broke that cycle for you? So when you had that moment on the beach when your dad spoke to you, from the cloud, was that moment of realization for you that you had to take charge of your life, of your money, of your future?
I always knew, but I didn't know what was stopping me deep, 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 deep down.
Yeah.
And it was that I wanted my father to see me. He never saw me, or that was my experience.
Yeah.
And when he said, this is what I've agreed to teach you this way, it was released.
Yeah.
Even more, I was always scared of dogs because I was bitten when I was 7, 8, something like that. And I love all animals. I wanted to be a vet. That was my option number one. I absolutely love all animals, from spiders to name it, but dogs. I was so scared I couldn't even see them in photographs.
Oh
That scared
gosh.
me.
Yeah.
And if I dreamed with them, I would wake up screaming and crying. It was horrifying. And then I realized that not that long ago that what happened back then, I went to that moment when that dog bit me. The dog bit me. We were visiting my aunt. I was with my cousin, and my mother said, and I said, look, I got bitten, clean me, that's it, but nothing else. But then when we were back home, my mother said it to my father, and he started screaming, this is embarrassing, this is a shame, but screaming in a block of apartments. This dog must be put down. I'm going to speak to the mayor. I'm going to. And I think that was so shocking for me that I said the safest thing is for me to be away from dogs, which I didn't know. But then when I realized that, I started getting close to dogs. That day at the beach, there was nobody. And then a small black dog, medium size, came to me. And I said, is that you? Thinking that that was my father. And then the owner said, I'm so sorry that he came up to you. He's never, ever, ever done this because he's young. He's very scared. He never comes up to anybody. I'm so sorry. But that was it. And then the biggest payment that I got in my life, I received it on the anniversary of my dad's death.
Oh, wow.
And that day,
Yeah.
The invoice had been issued 1 month before, so it could have arrived any time.
Yeah.
That day, Owen and I were going to Bali to spend 2 months there, which is like the paradigm of, wow, I've got it. The same day.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And it goes to show, this year, I'm making much more of a conscious effort to kind of be more spiritually curious, because I've been completely the opposite way, all my life. But reading more, around the universe and what's the word I'm looking for? Cannot remember the phrase now, but just being more conscious of what's going on and what you want, and talking openly about what you want as though you already have it. And the number of people I've spoken to about this who have set the law of attraction suddenly come to me, who have given me so many examples, exactly as you've just said, of little signs that there seems to be, along the way, of amounts of money showing up, or a feather, being found in a place where feathers wouldn't be, etc., etc. And I think for me, being much more open-minded about these things has encouraged more things to positively happen as a result.
Yeah.
And it would seem the same for you, that when your dad spoke to you and you had that realization that how he parented you was for him the way he felt he should parent you, and not how you perceived it as him being unloving and non-supportive, etc. And then money showing up, on the anniversary of his death in a way that you could never have anticipated. So how would you say your money story has changed from the one you were living, as a young adult or as a child, to where you are today?
Today, I know that I am abundance. So even if everything is taken away from me, I know that I can create it again. And I also see my sons, Leslie, they are 22 and 20, and they live by these principles. So they are doing what they've chosen to do. They know that they can make money in the stock market. So they are not scared whatsoever. They always say, well, we can work anywhere because we can multiply the money in the stock market. And then that would free us to do whatever we want, to change the world.
Yeah.
Also, they grew up with no telly, I can tell you. So they watch many YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Very nerdy, very nerdy. But that's there.
And
So
funnily enough, my children don't watch a lot of TV. They do watch a lot of YouTube videos, as you've said, but they're not very big on TV either. So maybe TV is going to be something that's going to be naturally left behind by the younger generations.
yeah, well, when I'm talking about 2000 and 2002, so back
Yeah.
then they would still watch telly, children.
Yeah.
There was not so much in YouTube.
Yeah.
That was a no.
Yeah.
All they watched was movies that I would have seen before in English.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I taught them English ever since they were born. So they would have that advantage.
Yeah. Which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So how can people connect with you, Anna?
LinkedIn is Ana Rodriguez Garcia. Leslie will very kindly write it down there.
I will.
And then you can find me Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as Empowered Supernova.
I love that name. I really do love that name. And yeah, absolutely. Don't worry, everybody. All those details will be in the show notes so that you can easily connect with Anna from there as well. Thank you very much for today. I have absolutely loved our conversation and getting to know a little bit more about your story, and for you sharing so openly and honestly and emotionally. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for making this space possible and for making me feel so safe. And my desire is that what I've said empower somebody, because we're not alone. Whatever crazy mad shit we go through, there's always somebody else that's going through the same crazy mad shit. Then we can help each other.
Absolutely. And that is the purpose of the podcast. If I can, and my guests can, help at least one listener with something that has been said, then the episode, the podcast, has been well recorded. So thank you for sharing that sentiment too. Thank
Leslie,
you, Anna.
love you.
Love you too. Thank you.